we must separate between necessity and entitlement. If we don't examine what those who colonize us called tradition or convention, we will just keep repeating old mistakes. And I really want to challenge us. Next time we talk about decolonization, it's not just the curricula or ways of teaching, it's the executive as well. I mean, when you get into the office, you find things, and they are colonial. You find traditions, ways of being seen, and they are colonial. But they are not challenged because black people want to keep them sacred, because just in case I get in there one day myself. If we don't examine what those who colonize us call tradition or convention, we will just keep repeating the same mistakes. Leadership requires interrogation. I'm a king, yes. Without further ado, let me get to the reason why I'm here. The academic in me was tempted to start the discussion on leadership by discussing the difference between leaders and managers. But for the sake of time, I will highlight critical points that leadership and management are fundamentally different concepts. And we must never conflate them. Leaders are born, I believe, and of course, they can be made too. But managers are always made. Managers are always made. Leadership is not a title. In my view, it is a burden. It is a commitment, and indeed a battlefield. Managers have strict working hours, overtime, and can even write an email signature saying that they don't open their inboxes on weekends or after 7, but leaders don't have the luxury to do that. You can be woken at 2 a.m. and be told a student at a private res is suicidal. A manager can easily say, well, they're in a private res, so none of my business. Or, excuse me, that's above my pay grade, so none of my problem. I won't get involved. But a leader knows and understands that leadership is a burden. So they know that it's not about whether an issue is under their purview or whether it's under their constituency or within their pay grade. What matters is that there is an emergency that calls upon you to wake up and intervene in one way or another. This is the distinction that we must recognize, particularly in a world where many people hold positions that demand leadership, but all they offer is management. You know, there are so many people who have a leadership position, but all they offer is management. Today, we have many people, even heads of states, who function as managers. And dare I say, good managers sometimes. But who occupy positions that require leadership. So they are there, but they have no moral conviction to lead. Of course, in the EFF, I know people are never parachuted into positions of leadership, at least at an organizational level from me as an outsider looking. The people are never parachuted. It is your leadership outside the position that got you to the leadership position you occupy today. And that's how it should be. However, once one enters into formal leadership, there are things that you must know, that you must understand, that you must accept and internalize. The first one is that there is no such thing as a leader in your own right. Leadership is not a personal ambition. It is a mandate bestowed upon you by the movement and for the movement, not for yourself. So you are no leader in your own right. It doesn't matter how gifted you are, but you are no leader in your own right, but in the movement's right. And the effectiveness of your leadership will be measured by the success of the movement you lead. Your individuality ceases and collective responsibility takes charge. But at the same time, accountability remains individualized. Did you see that? So it's different, you know. Accountability is individualized, but responsibility is not. The organization moves as a collective unit. But when failure arises, accountability does not dissolve into the collective. It must be traced back to those who held the responsibility to act but failed to deliver. Leadership does not allow for deflection. Yes, you are part of a leadership structure, but your accountability is yours alone. The second thing is that leadership is no privilege. It is a burden, as I said. It's a burden that you have willingly chosen to carry when you accepted that nomination in December. Nobody forced you. You accepted the nomination. And now that you have made that choice, you must carry the burden with pride. And thirdly, as newly elected members, you must start with the end in mind. You cannot lead aimlessly. You cannot be reactionary and respond only to crises as they arise. You must define the legacy you wish to leave behind. The success of your leadership will not be measured only by how well you executed your daily duties, but by whether or not you have built something that outlives your term and strengthens the foundation of this movement for generations to come. When one steps into a leadership role, be it in politics, in business, or in academia, it often comes with some form of upward mobility. Maybe you now earn a bigger salary, or maybe you now earn a salary. Maybe you didn't earn a salary before. Maybe now you have greater influence, or perhaps a bigger office. Well, maybe now you attract more people who want to come to you because they think you are the girl or the boy with the ball. Whatever the case may be, something has changed. Once you get the leadership position, something changes. But real leadership demands that you remain authentic. And that's the fourth thing. You've got to remain authentic. Leadership demands that you remain rooted in the cause that elevated you in the first place. Often people will forget the cause that elevated them in the first place. Of course, one of the most difficult dilemmas, especially for black leaders, is how to remain authentic while operating in spaces that demand conformity. And conformity comes in two ways, but both of them require you to change. On the one hand, conforming can be a serious challenge, like being expected to speak in monotone or wear clothes that are seen as professional or by those who colonized us, like, this is not how people at your level, how VCs dress up, or how VCs wear their hair, or braid your hair a certain way and avoid afros because they're a little bit controversial. You won't believe that my hair was a point of contestation when I worked down in the Cape. But the list goes on. I know it can be difficult for some to resist conforming to those expectations. So you will see them go out of their way. You see people going out of their way to dilute themselves, to fit in. But trust me, it is very easy not to conform to all that. All that Eurocentric professionalism nonsense, especially with social media giving us the platform to express ourselves, and organizations like the EFF available to come to our rescue, because we are black people, and so there's no point to be apologetic. Your short, kinky hair is absolutely legit. The more dangerous and far more seductive form of conformity is the one that offers comfort, prestige, and personal benefit. You know, the spoils that come with the position. It is far more difficult for people, especially black people, to resist, precisely because the spoils rewards compliance. When I became VC of UCT, and I saw that 2 million rand was budgeted for my inauguration, I asked myself, Why are we spending so much money? Where are the decolonization people? You talk about decolonizing higher education, curriculum. Nobody talks about decolonizing the executive. Everybody wants to have an inauguration. And I said, why should I have this? And I was told, this is the way it is done. And it's the way it's supposed to be done from time immemorial. And I was asked to write a motivation as to why I don't want to have it. Of course I did. I was expected to accept the nonsensical justification that it's tradition because the event was in my honor. So I was supposed to be impressed. And I said, this is absolutely un-African. In fact, it is absolute nonsense. How could I, as a black mother, in good conscience, waste millions on a party when the lives of hundreds of students are on pause, they've completed, but they can't graduate because they owe the university. Some of them 10,000 rand, some of them 20, some of them 100. And I'm going to have a party for more than 2 million. It doesn't make sense. But of course, no one in the country asks that question when inaugurations are held. Why? Because it's time to buy a new dress. So I decided that we use the money to rescue the students who can graduate, settle their fees so that they can graduate. And they said, but during the inauguration, there are other formalities we do. The chancellor has to put the gown on you and you go to sign a book. And I said, when those students that we've rescued graduate, I will sign the book and Gracia Machel must come and put the gown on me. And I will be the guest speaker on the graduation ceremony for those students. Leadership demands that you don't do something simply because that's how it has always been done. Ask why it's done that way. The same principle applies to flying business class with university money, having bodyguards, a chef, and many other things. I'm sure you know I rejected all of them. I refused to have a driver, to have a bodyguard, even to fly business class. People who reported to me were not so impressed because if I don't fly business class, how can they? But I don't need business class to feel important or to show that I'm important. I'm important and I know I'm fabulous. Business class is not going to add anything. But what I'm saying is remain authentic. You know who you are. The world, the African family that I'm coming from says you don't spend money of the university that way when the university is struggling with finances and students are sick. Imagine going to the US, 169,000 rands on business class to New York. And it's more than fees for 1 year with rest for one student. Imagine. I mean, how many times do I go to the US? How many students could I cover for the damn whole year? So I said, no, I'm not doing it. And here's the thing. I mean, we would go to a meeting somewhere on the continent, all the vice-chancellors of this country, and they all fly business class. And so they all come with chauffeurs and E-classes and their drivers, right? I would ask for a lift from them. I mean, of course, I would be coming from Cape Town. But we get into the flight, and the air hostesses say, they all stop at business, and I go to economy. But nobody wants to hear anything from them. Everybody wants to know what I am thinking. And that's more important than being seen to be important. We must separate between necessity and entitlement. If we don't examine what those who colonize us called tradition or convention, we will just keep repeating old mistakes. And I really want to challenge us. Next time we talk about decolonization, it's not just the curricula or ways of teaching, it's the executive as well. Ways of managing, ways of leading. I mean, when you get into the office, you find things, and they are colonial. You find traditions, ways of being seen, and they are colonial. But they are not challenged because black people want to keep them sacred, because just in case I get in there one day myself. if we don't examine what those who colonize us call tradition or convention, we will just keep repeating the same mistakes. Leadership requires interrogation. As a leader, every decision you make must be subjected to moral scrutiny. Leadership demands that you stand firm in your principles, that you make decisions based on what is right rather than what is popular or convenient. Just because people have been wearing suits and glamorous dresses in parliament for hundreds of years does not mean you can't go there with your overalls and gumboots, and the EFF has proven that to us. People used to bapara mapepe, to parliament, and EFF has debunked all of that. Your leadership should not change you into someone detached from the struggles of the people you represent. Instead, it should deepen your commitment to them. Now, coming to my fifth point, as leaders, you must have a cause. Something you believe in. Something you believe in so much that you would rather walk into fire than betray it. You must commit to your cause and stand your ground in protecting it, regardless of any form of pressure. I, for one, have been very passionate about young people and their development. I believe in young people and am willing to go all out to protect them. That's not to say they are clean, they are perfect, blah, blah, no. So when I started VC, I'm like, in my tenure, remember that was 2018 July, right? And that's the year that the exam was written on the rugby field because Fees Must Fall was still on. And I said, in my tenure, I will never call police or private security. And my executive said, hello? Remember that I hadn't appointed these executives. I found them there, many of them, right? And they said, but why? What are we going to do? And I said, we've got to engage. We've got to engage. And of course, there are going to be protests, right? But the reason I don't want to do that is because I don't want to criminalize students. You know, when you have a protest about something small as this, and you call private security or police, hey, the thing increases, it gets this big. Because either somebody is going to get arrested or students are going to fight with private security, there's going to be injuries, and now some people must be prosecuted. Some people are going to end with criminal cases on their records. And then they can't be lawyers, they can't get this or that. They did that when they were 21. When we could have solved the problem differently. And indeed, in all the 4.5 years I was there, I didn't call private security or police. But of course, 5 days after I left, the students were bloody shambaked by police. Good for them. They didn't even say goodbye when I left. I'm just being cheeky, man. I'm just being cheeky. The progress and the growth of young people is a cause for which I'm prepared to die if I were to call Mandela. I donated 20% of my monthly salary when I was VC towards their education. I didn't have to. I didn't have to. From the first month as VC up to the last month where I got a salary as a VC, 20% went to student financial aid from my salary. But of course, Ajahn Paswan will not tell you. And I did that not because I had excess or money in excess, but because I genuinely believe in young people's development. And I know, of course, it was for scholarship, and that money, I said, only for colored and black African students. Yeah. And I called it the Mamokgethi Phakeng Scholarship. And of course, some people want to raise an issue about Mamokgethi Phakeng. Hey, it's my damn money. You don't ask Ernest Oppenheimer when he calls it an Oppenheimer Scholarship. I chose not to buy shoes, but to take it to there. And then, of course, I'm saying preference is this. And so you call me a narcissist for calling a scholarship that I contribute 20% of my salary to? Please, go ahead. Now, Even when they frustrated me, I still continued to donate because my commitment to young people's development went beyond my emotions. And by the way, the money is still there. So the scholarship is still there. In 2021, I did an interview with David Mashabela, and after the interview, he showed me around his studios, and I saw McGee's recording studio, and I jumped onto the chair, and they took me a picture, and I sent to my children as a joke, and I decided some weeks or months later to put it on Twitter. And boom, there was pandemonium. I'm sure some of you will remember when I trended for McGee's picture on McGee's studio. It was all over social media, and of course I was still VC, and it was all over the university. People said McGee was misogynist, and said his platform disrespected women, and so on and so forth. They threw all forms of insult at me, and it got to the powers that be at the university, and because it was just a picture, I was now being ordered to explain myself, even though it was just a picture. I was required to distance myself from the platform, to publicly apologize for the harm my tweet has caused. I'm sure you remember, I used to do so many apologies. Like fellow South Africans, here I am again. You know? Because I'm just unconventional. I was just authentic, right? Fellow South Africans, I have sinned. I took a picture at McGee's studio. Actually, people thought I went to McGee. I hadn't gone yet. So I was let off scot-free after I argued with my line managers. And I took it back. I took the fight back to Twitter because it was going on. And I penned an entire thread addressing this nonsensical cancel culture. Some of you might remember, you might have engaged, and you might have said things to me. Don't worry, I don't remember faces, you know. I still go on, like, if you've been VC like me, I don't keep grudges, I keep going. Life goes on. But here's the thing. Someone who's now a deputy minister, Nongeba Mhlauli, I think, came in and said she agreed with me that cancel culture was problematic, but she said it does not apply when it comes to McGee, because the platform is deliberately vile, she used, I'm quoting her, disrespectful and regressive, and even went on to say I was disingenuous for defending it. And of course it was a one-on-one until 12 midnight. And I remember someone saying to her, it's 12 midnight, you better remove this comment that you made because it's really shabby. When people wake up, they mustn't see her, you know. I gave her a beautiful lecture that I will not repeat here. But fast forward 2 years later, McGee's platform is flourishing and everyone is going there to be interviewed. Even ANC officials are going there. They are queuing up to go there. I'm sure Nonga herself is waiting to be interviewed because she's a politician. She will jump if she was invited to be interviewed. Unlike my picture, I had taken a picture. They are going to be interviewed and they sit there for an hour. And Nongeba and the likes are suddenly mute. The idea that it doesn't apply to McGee anymore is gone. So if I took the easy route and cancelled those young men when everyone around expected me to, what would have happened? I mean, I don't know. But what I'm saying is that don't just stop doing things because people outside what you stand for as the leadership thinks that's not right, that's not on, that's not how it should be done. You are here for a cause. You defend the cause, whatever it takes. The cause, you defend it. I have countless more examples in leadership, especially when it comes to my other important course, which I took to UCT as my vision, excellence, transformation, and sustainability. Of course, transformation was heavily contested when I got there. There were many who were so intimidated just by the word. And I think some are still. As if the inclusion of black people in leadership meant the compromise of standards. They held their racist beliefs that despicable, soulless, and cold-blooded racists like Janu Zwalus continue to proudly hold today, that excellence and transformation are mutually exclusive. Of course, I seriously opposed that notion and insisted that excellence without transformation would never be sustainable. I will maintain that if you only drive excellence for its own sake and there's no transformation, the excellence will always be disrupted. At one point, when we were recruiting a new CFO, the selection team came back to me and said they could not find a qualified black candidate or black candidates for the position, so they advised me that the acting CFO, who is a white man and was not even a CA at the time, or well, still not a CA, should be appointed as the CFO, because he's been there for a long time, he's always acted. And I said, there's absolutely no way. I was committed that finance, HR, research must be led by black people, capable black people. And of course, I did win that after 4.5 years, that they were led by good people. So I said, there's no way, and I will personally find one for you. So I picked up the phone, and within no time, I had found an excellent black and highly qualified candidate. They interviewed him with their preferred white candidate, and the black candidate was unmatched in every which way. There are many more appointments. There are many more appointment processes that unfolded in the same manner. And it's looking at key appointments, HR, finance, and research. And by the way, the CFO is still there. You can check him out. What I want you to take from this is that it is important to have a cause that guides your leadership, be it transformation, be it a united Africa, be it nationalization of mines, be expropriation of land without compensation, whatever it is. Make sure that once you believe in that cause, you are willing to die defending it, no matter how much fire is thrown at you. A leader does not retreat. A leader does not retreat. Leadership is a sacrifice, Bagaitsu. Stand your ground, and history will prove you right. Internally, within the movement, you must be brutally honest with one another. There must be open discussion, hard conversations, and a culture of accountability. Your meeting rooms must be spaces where ideas are contested, where weaknesses are confronted, and there's collective wisdom that is sharpened. That is how movements sharpen themselves, how they refine their strategies, and how they ensure longevity. However, externally, you must remain united. Organizations are not crumbled often by poor policies, but they are crumbled by fractured leadership, by internal battles being waged in the public eye. This is where leadership discipline is tested. If you believe in the cause of the EFF, if you understand the gravity of the responsibility that comes with leading a movement of this magnitude, then you must know that a leader who does not protect the movement is a liability to the movement. Simple. It's simple. It does not mean that leadership is above critique. Actually, far from it. Leadership must be criticized for the movement to grow, but critique must be constructive, strategic, and contained within the house of leadership. When disagreements or disrespect spills into the public discourse, they do not serve the cause. They do not serve the movement. They serve the enemy. And often people do them to serve themselves, because it feels good on Twitter when you do that. But it doesn't serve the cause, and it serves the enemy. Let me tell you, that's what the Blue Party wants. The credibility of any organization is dependent on the strength of its leader. If your leader is weak, the organization is going to be weak. So you need your leader to be strong. because the organization becomes strong. They are the organization. Doesn't matter what you say. Doesn't matter what you... Of course you must contribute. That's why you are in this leadership team. You know? That's why you're in this leadership team. The idea that, no, that sentence came with me, or Dineo said, no, so childish. You are in the leadership team to contribute. There is no organization. There is no organization where the leader writes all the documents, prepares all the submissions, writes all the... It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Not just the leader, but not one person does all of that. Ideas are co-constructed. When we come to a workshop, we are deciding about the future of the organization. We discuss whatever, and we talk, and then you come with the word. Oh, it didn't come out of the blue. It's because of our contribution, as we are discussing. You just know better English. And so you coin the words. You strengthen the leader. In fact, you say, we are led. We are led. For me, that's mature leadership. As I said, the credibility of any organization depends on the strength of your leader. And the strength of the leader doesn't just come from the air. We also endow them with it. Of course, leaders are born, as I said, they've got, but we endow them with more of it. Whether we like it or not, the leader is the face of the movement. The leader is the first line of attack. He or she is the primary target of external forces, and as such, his or her weaknesses, perceived or real, reflects directly on the strength of the organization itself. And because they're the leader, I mean, when you're a leader, you get criticized for everything. I mean, the first critique that came when I became VC was that I showed much cleavage. I was, what cleavage? I don't even have one. I was shocked. I was like, what? You'll be surprised. Like her earrings are too big. Like, what? But the leader will be criticized for what they wear, what they say, where they go, who they hang out with, blah, blah, blah. Things that have got nothing to do with what you stand for as the organization. Because they are the primary target of external forces. Let me present a simple analogy to cement this idea. Let's say economic freedom is your main cause. Of course it is, right? Okay. I'm going to say, let's say. So, we will say it is your ultimate destination, economic freedom. So think of the organization as the car that is transporting you to that destination, and the leader as the driver of the vehicle taking you to that destination. And you all are in the car, you trust the leader to take you there. Now, you can never be loyal to the cause if you're not loyal to the organization. You can never say you really want to go to the destination. I want to get into the car. I trust the car, but I don't trust the leader. But the leader, the car is nothing without the leader. The leader is the driver. So if you keep hopping on and off the car and so on, going to other destinations, I mean, the vehicle matters. You cannot say you are committed to reaching the destination where the vehicle is going while undermining the very car that is taking you there, or the very driver that is taking you there. You really want to reach your destination. You cannot ignore the condition of the driver, nor can you sabotage the driver's ability to navigate. If the driver is attacked, you must protect them, because otherwise they won't be able to drive. If the driver loses direction, you must guide him back. Otherwise you get lost. You can never say you really want to get to the destination by staying in the same car, but do not care if the driver sleeps on the road or drinks alcohol whilst driving. To not care would not only be reckless, but it would be suicidal. At the bottom of this, I'm saying be loyal to the cause. Be loyal to the cause, be loyal to the organization and its leadership. In other words, I'm not saying you can be loyal, I'm saying you can't be loyal to the cause and not to its leadership. I mean, like these three things, to the cause, to the organization, to the leadership. They work together. It's the direction, the car, and the driver. If the organization collapses, the cause is abandoned. If the leader is neutralized, the movement becomes vulnerable to division, infiltration, and eventual demise. If you believe in the cause, protect it. If you believe in the organization, strengthen it. If you believe in the leader, support them. And if you do not believe in any of these, that's 100% okay. But CIC, respectfully, I'm going to say it's still early, you can check out now. I'm sorry that I'm advising people to check out, but I mean, it just makes sense. It just makes sense. There's no point. The final point you must take note of is the context of South Africa and Africa. The theories of leadership that are espoused in the EFF should both be servant and transformational. Both servant leaders and transformational leaders, according to Patterson, have values of love, trust, humility, empowerment, service, and of course, vision. Okay, I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to love and respect people you lead. Value them. Value them. Care for them. And have their best interests at heart in your leadership. Some of them will join the EFF simply because you value them. You know? They will never forget, I have to join this movement because this is it. Leadership without empathy is hollow and performative. And history has no place for leaders who are performative. A leader who cannot read the room, who's disconnected from the realities of those they claim to represent, is not a leader but an imposter. Leaders of the EFF, as transformational leaders, must rally the members of the organization and society at large around the mission, vision, values, and objectives of the EFF. You must be clear on what you stand for. You must be equally clear on where you're going. Leadership without a well-defined vision is leadership that is doomed to fail before it even begins. For the leadership, the purpose and vision must be clear. It is not enough to have ideas, to recite slogans, or to make rhetorical commitments. It's important that you believe in something, and then you recruit others who are willing to believe in what you believe to join you. You must have capacity to paint the picture of what the future looks like, or what the future feels like, smells like, and sounds like. People should see the future by just looking at you, hearing you, following you, and they say, if that is it, I want to be there. That picture must be so clear that everyone from the intellectuals in the university lecture halls to the elderly woman selling fruit at the taxi rank can see themselves in it. So I will conclude with 3 challenges that I believe that you must be aware of when it comes to leadership. I've said all the other things, but 3 challenges at the end. The first challenge is that every level has got its own devil. I'm sure some of you have heard me talk about that. The higher you go, the new devil emerges. You know, when you grow up black in this country, especially those of us who grew up in apartheid and went through homeland and all of that, you learn to fight. And you know, as you go up the management positions, I thought I've got all the weapons, I know how to fight. But I learned that as you go up, the devil changes. The nature of the devil changes. The higher you rise, the more powerful and tireless your enemies become. And the mistake many make is assuming that leadership gets easier as you go up. That once you reach a certain level, you'll be immune from criticism, that your victories will silence your detractors. I mean, I made sure, I had every credential in the book. Until I retired. I mean, I was a rated scientist. I was a B1 rated scientist until last year, June. And you don't need to when you're a manager. And your rating expires every 5 years. If you don't do research, if you apply, you don't get it. And I continued doing research, I continued publishing, and I applied, and it went for international review, and I got it. And my rating kept going up. But you know what I was trying to do? I was trying to show my racist colleagues that I can do this. Actually, my mother was a domestic worker, but I can get a rating that's better than yours. But here's the thing, racists don't care. A racist will remain a racist. Whether you give 20% of your salary to student scholarship, whether you nail all the academic credentials that they, as academics, can't even fathom, whether you work from 4:30 to 8 at night like I did, racists don't care. They will remain racist. They become actually even well-resourced. The attacks against you will become even more sophisticated because now the devil owns newspapers. They have the paper and the pen endless. They own people who, it's no longer the small devil. So as you go up, the devil changes. The moment you become a leader, you become a target, and the higher you rise, the more complicated and well-resourced the attacks against you will become. When they say leadership is not for the thin-skinned, they know that political leadership is not for the normal-skinned. If there's anything like that, leadership requires high capacity for shame. I often say, don't take a leadership position if you don't have a high capacity for shame. Because you will be insulted, you'll be misrepresented, you'll be attacked, you'll be ridiculed. Sometimes over things you never even said or did. Or sometimes over your family or your children. Hello. The media will distort your words. And social media will exaggerate your flaws. You must be mentally and emotionally resilient enough to withstand all of it. If your primary concern as a leader is being liked, then you do not belong in leadership. Number 2, power corrupts. So that's the second challenge of leadership. It's understanding that power is seductive. And if you are not intentional and disciplined, it will consume you. You'll be aware of the intoxicating nature of power because history books have many pages of leaders who started with good intentions but became enemies of the people over time. Power does not corrupt instantly. It corrupts gradually. It starts with justifying small compromises. You start by rationalizing the tiniest betrayals of principle and normalizing the very things you once opposed. Today you compromise on one small thing and tomorrow you do not even recognize yourself anymore. That is how systems of power have neutralized radical leaders and will continue to do so right here in our country. And perhaps to touch a bit on the influence of economic interests of leadership, know that if racists want to destroy a black leader, they will not use other races, they will use your own. Because people can be co-opted. Money is good, but it's dangerous. And people have more power when they've got money. And power is even more dangerous. A leader with power but without integrity is a danger to the people. A leader with power but without integrity will sell out the movement for personal survival. And a leader with power but without integrity will betray their comrades their ideals, and their own conscience if the price is right. And do not let titles, resources, or influence change who you are. Do not let the temptation of power make you forget why you started leading in the first place, why you raised your hand and said, I'm willing to be nominated. Leadership is not about what you can get from it. It's about what you can give to it. This is why every leader must have people around them who are not afraid to tell them the truth. If everyone in your inner circle agrees with everything you say, then you have already lost your way. You must welcome critique. You must demand accountability. You must never become the kind of leader who only listens to voices that flatter you. Number 3, and that's the last. In leadership, there is no right or wrong answer, often. And this is the third challenge of leadership. It's understanding that there is no such thing as right or wrong decision, often in leadership, especially as you go higher. Things get complex. If there is one certainty in leadership, is that every decision will be contested by someone, especially in political leadership. There's always room for contestation. Some will applaud you, others will condemn you, and many will be neutral until they see which way the wind is blowing. Leadership is not about perfection, and the leader is not always perfect. It is about conviction. You must make a decision, justify it, and stand by it. What's problematic is indecisiveness. That's what's problematic. And that's, in my view, one of the greatest weaknesses in leadership is indecisiveness. People who hold a big leadership position, but they are scared to make decisions. Some of the worst leaders in history were not those who made mistakes. It was those who feared making decisions at all. As a leader, you must have the courage to choose. And once you have chosen, you must be bold enough to defend that choice. Now you have made the choice, not only to be in the EFF, but to be in the CCT, to be led by the CIC. Now, you're going to defend the cause, you're going to defend the movement, and you're going to defend the leadership. Congratulations and all the best for the work.
Let's give her another round of applause. I'm a king, yes, I'm a king. I'm a king.